As we say out here in the Harambe, we also say twin day. Twin day is this week in New York, meaning let's go. But now Jumbo, everybody, Jumbo is here for hello. So hello, my name is Chris, and I will be your safari guide as we explore the Harambe Wildlife Reserve together. As a last note, this does happen to be a very real truck. I'm also a very real human that is really driving this real truck. And the road out here does get really bumpy, so it'll be real important for your safety. Please stay fully and completely seated throughout our entire safari, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck. And now we're going to go ahead and head on into the Little Aturi Forest, which is how we are going to begin this 2-week-long safari adventure of ours. That is correct. We are scheduled to be out here for the next 2 weeks, although Hakuna Matata, no worries, those 2 weeks sure will likely fly by so fast it may feel an awful lot like 20 minutes or so. If you do happen to have any cameras or phones with cameras with you, I would strongly advise placing them into an action, sports, or video setting, as those are the best way to get a quick picture or video of these amazing animals so you can remember them later on. After all, we're not going to be able to stop for any animal that you see out here, actually. Now here to the left-hand side of us, we are going to find 2 beautiful black and white birds with an orange bill, known as the saddle-billed stork, named for their orange bill, which is shaped similar to an English saddle. They can stand at heights of roughly 5 feet tall, making them pretty tall birds. Also, way in the back to the right, you may have found one of my favorites, the okapi. Now, the okapi does have some striped pants, striped legs, or striped pajamas, which kind of makes it resemble a zebra, but it is actually more closely related to the giraffe. Some of the features that the okapi shares with the giraffe would be that of a similar skull shape, which is just a little bit smaller than the giraffe's skull. Now, the striped pattern on the okapi is entirely random, which allows them to blend into their surroundings. In fact, they are so successful at blending into their environment, they have even actually earned them the nickname, the Ghost of the Forest. Although a lot of the animals that live out in the Little Aturi Forest and beyond are rather excellent at camouflage and staying hidden, which happens to be precisely why I like to say it takes a keen eye with which to spot them. Although now we're going to go ahead and head on out of the Little Aturi Forest, although we are still going to continue on this rather lengthy journey of ours. And by continue, I mean we are going to continue on into the Safi River. Now, as we head on down into the Safi River, I can already see some beautiful white birds with gray feathers out here known as the pink-backed pelican. Now, these pink-backed pelicans get their name from a pink coloration on their back, which extends to their extremities during their mating season. Now, they are colonial nesters, meaning they have some pretty large nesting groups called colonies, which can consist of roughly 500 pink-backed pelicans. In the water on the left-hand side of this wall, you'll find the large and famous Nile hippopotamus, also called the hippo. Now, the hippo weighs in at up to 5,500 or 5,500 pounds, making them one of the heavier animals on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. In fact, even a group of them is called a bloat. Now, the hippo will spend most of their days submerged underwater, which is something they do despite not exactly being a water-breathing animal, as actually just like you and I, they are an air-breathing mammal. However, they can actually hold their breath underwater longer than we can. After all, they can hold their breath for about 70 seconds at a time, something they can even do unconsciously while they sleep. Now, I think I may have spotted up ahead of us signs of another famous animal. Let's see if we're able to find the famous and the largest Nile crocodile, which is the largest reptile in the world. Now, the crocodile can grow to lengths of up to 16 feet. That's on average about 12 to 14 feet long. They can also grow to weights of up to about 500 pounds, which is around 1/10 or 10% the weight of a hippo. Now, the crocodile is also known for having one of the stronger bite forces in the animal kingdom, as those jaws of theirs are capable of crushing down with enough force that allows them to eat up to half of their body weight in a single feed. In fact, that would be the prime reason I would encourage you to never smile at a crocodile. But now it looks as though we are making our way here into a change in the foliage, indicating that we are now getting a little bit closer to the savanna. In fact, I think it might even be time for us to go ahead and begin to slowly make our way down into the savanna proper. And we're going to try to see about getting a real nice up close and knocked in very personal view of each and every single one of all of these awesome and amazing animals who use the wide open spaces of the savanna as their home. As we begin our journey out here on the savanna, it does look pretty well maintained. This is mainly because it is maintained by all of these amazing animals that live out here. After all, it is in fact their home, and they are the ones that are going to keep it looking incredibly, incredibly nice. Coming up here to the left-hand side, you'll find my all-time favorite animal on the entire savanna, which would be called the African painted dog, or the painted wolves, named for the paint-like patterns on their coats. Now, these painted wolves are pretty close cousins of the domestic dog, like the ones you may have at home. So they're actually canid, or canine. Sadly, though, they are an endangered species, as they used to number with enough numbers to be widespread throughout most of Africa. And now today, they're pretty much only located within the country of Zimbabwe. Also on our left, we're going to find the large horned and Collie cattle, also called the Watusi cattle, named for the Watusi tribe who first discovered them. So I like to say they're what you can see here to the left. The ones on their heads may look pretty large and very heavy, but they're actually quite light and honeycombed on the inside, allowing blood to flow through their horns, allowing them to stay cool on hotter days, acting somewhat like the radiator in your car. And also on that left side, you may have found the tallest animal on the entire savanna. That would be the giraffe. Now, if you were to take a close look at the pattern on that giraffe, you may have noticed the edge to each individual pattern is very sharp and very jagged. That's how you can tell that they are the Maasai species of giraffe. Now, each pattern on a giraffe is unique to the individual giraffe, as in fact no two patterns are the same, acting somewhat like our fingerprints. Now, as the giraffe are the tallest animal on the entire savanna, they can stand at heights of up to 20 feet tall. That's on average about 16 to 18 feet tall. They're also roughly 6 feet tall when they're first born. Now, a female giraffe does give birth standing up, so yes, it does mean that a baby giraffe or calf will have roughly a 6-foot drop to the ground when they're first born. I like to say the first thing that a baby giraffe feels is likely gravity, although not to worry, as a drop does provide a bit of a boost to a baby giraffe's lungs. So I guess it does actually work out okay for a baby giraffe in the end. Of course, as the giraffe are known for being the tallest animal on the savanna, they're also known for having an incredibly long neck. In fact, interestingly enough, within their neck, they've got roughly about the same number of vertebrae that we have within our necks. That is to say, they have roughly 7 vertebrae within their necks. Obviously, though, their vertebrae are quite a bit larger than ours, which certainly would account for their much longer necks than those of our necks.
That car was watching baby before. Yeah. That car is there, right?
I do happen to see coming up ahead of us here, folks, so we're going to be making our way here into what looks to be Timbo territory. Now, that word Timbo does in fact happen to be the Swahili word for yet another very famous animal. This animal does happen to be rather famous for being very, very large and also very, very heavy. In fact, it tends to be so large and so heavy it should be kind of hard to miss. And it looks as though I was right, as we're going to get to see the Timbo coming up here ahead of us. That is correct, the word Timbo does in fact happen to be the Swahili word for the elephant. Now, these elephants out here do in fact happen to be down at the African elephant. They are in Africa after all. That would make it a little bit awkward if it was the Asian elephant. And the African elephant does have them rather large ears, which coincidentally is shaped somewhat like Africa, the continent.
You'll see them in 1 second. There they are.
As the elephant is known for being the largest and heaviest animal on land. It can grow to be roughly 13,000 pounds, which is 6.5 tons. They can also eat up to about 6% of their body weight daily. That means that the largest and heaviest elephant can weigh in at nearly the same size and weight as that of non-ladies in my trip. And they can eat up to almost 800 pounds of foliage per day, which caused them to be a bit of a pest problem to a group of farmers over in Kenya. That's because when the elephants would walk too close to the farmers' crops, they would eat what they perceived as a free buffet. Actually, that's something those farmers obviously did not like one bit, as they were losing a very large portion of their crops to the elephants. So they wanted to get rid of the elephants. But in fact, we here on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve did not want the elephants losing their habitat. So we made use of knowledge we learned about elephants here on the reserve, which is that elephants are in fact afraid of bees. So we took that knowledge over to Kenya, where we built a very special fence around their crops called a bee fence or a beehive fence. And now when the elephants walk too close to the crops, instead of eating that buffet, they disturb the fence. This then disturbs the bees. The bees will then fly out and begin buzzing as they do. And then the elephants, upon hearing that buzz, will become spooked, scared, and go around the crops. Now that program does work out nicely for the farmers in the end, as they've now gained a new crop, which would actually be that of the bees' honey. In fact, if you'd like to support that project, you need to go online and order some of their imported honey from Kenya by simply looking up the name of that project, which would actually be that of the Elephants and Bees Project. But now, of course, elephant society is mostly matriarchal, meaning that it is usually the eldest female and/or matriarch who leads the herd. The young males will often leave their mom's herd around their young teenage years, where they will usually go and form what's called a bachelor herd of other young males whom they meet while out on their own. Those young bachelors will then fight amongst each other for dominance in what's often called a sparring match, to help determine who the most dominant and also most successful elephant is, who will then become marked as the alpha male. Oh, but it looks like we found a bit of a flamboyance over here to the left. That would be a flamboyance of the greater flamingo, who is the largest of all flamingos in Africa, standing at a height of roughly 5 feet tall, making them a little bit larger than their Caribbean cousin. They're also the least pink flamingo as well. Granted, that is not because they are pink when they hatch. In fact, shortly after hatching, they are gray. They won't get the pink coloration of the feathers until after they have just enough beta-carotene and other carotenoids found in their diet. Now, their diet does consist mainly of things like mollusks, crustaceans, algae, and even shrimp, all of which are found on the bottom of their habitat, making them a bottom-feeding animal. It also means that, yes, it does in fact happen to be the shrimp turning their feathers pink. But now we are going to go ahead and head on into what looks to be white rhinoceros territory. I don't see any just yet, but let's keep our eyes peeled for them. As they do like to spend lots of time by mud bottles, like this one coming up ahead of us here. They will often use a mud bottle like this one ahead of us on the left to say mud bath. Of course, I don't think a mud bath sounds the cleanest, although I guess it does actually work out okay for the white rhino. Now, the white rhino does get their name off for their skin color. They're actually named for their wide jaw, which is useful for eating the grass and other foliage growing on the ground, making them a grazing animal. Coming up here to the right-hand side of us, we're going to find the largest and heaviest of all rhino species, the white rhinoceros. They can weigh in up to 6,000 pounds, for males mainly. Females are a little smaller, weighing in up to almost 4,500 pounds. They also have a charging speed of up to 35 miles per hour, roughly capable of galloping like a horse, meaning all 4 of their feet will be off the ground at the same time during a gallop. No wonder a group of them is called a crash of a rhino. Now I do think I may have seen coming up ahead of us here the fastest animal on land. Let's try to see if we're able to spot the cheetah. And the cheetah can run at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. They can also go from 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds. Also an impressive, which is an impressive acceleration. If they are in fact a sprinter, they are really a marathon runner, as they can actually really only maintain that top speed for just a few hundred yards before they need to rest for a few minutes. On that left-hand side of us, you may have found a long-furred antelope with no horns called the waterbuck. The waterbuck's long fur secretes an oily substance, making its fur water resilient. That one is female, which you can know because she doesn't have horns. It's only male waterbuck have horns. But now it does look as though we made our way here into the third of the jungle. Now I call it that because it infers you get to find the king and queen of the jungle up here lying about on their thrones. Now both the king and queen of the jungle will spend most of their day asleep, as they can sleep anywhere between about 16 to 20 hours a day. That's on average about 18 hours a day that they sleep, which is certainly something I have taken to call a lion share of the day. Granted, that is not for laziness, as they use that makes them to conserve their energy for when they need it. Although I will specify normally it is the lioness who does all the hunting, while the male lion mainly will just stay back and protect the pride. But now lost work, so we're going to make our way here into what looks to be some pretty large burrows. This means that we may get to find the largest burrowing animal in all of Africa, so let's keep our eyes out for the warthog. Now, the warthog does have two sets of tusks, the larger of which are on top of their snout and what's used to dig these pretty large burrows on the left, while the smaller set of tusks are underneath their jaw. Those ones are razor sharp and used mostly for defense. They often like to back into their burrows when they sleep. Now, but they have an easier time defending themselves from predators. Looks like we found a nice little crash of rhino here to the right-hand side of us.
You're right. We say rhinos for short. We don't want to say the whole thing. Rhinoceros.
Now here in a moment we are going to be making our way here into a ranger outpost. That's for the warden's post. Now the rangers who are stationed here enjoy spending quite a bit of time on some rather lengthy holidays. And when they go on vacation, they often leave in charge of their camp some peculiar animals who tend to be quite perceptive. In fact, these animals out here happen to be so perceptive, I have taken to calling them the greatest of all time. Or to go. So friends, I shall present you now a small herd of adorable Nigerian dwarf goats watching over the camp of our vacationing rangers. Now these goats, if you look them real close and in their eyes, you may notice that they have rectangular pupils, which gives them a wide peripheral vision, far wider than an animal with circular pupils such as ourselves would have. That's why I like to say they are pretty perceptive animals.
Good spot, Ample. Let's have it. Who wants to go on a ride?
But now it does look so we have seen an awful lot of awesome and amazing animals out here on the Harambe wildland. Evidently a large number of those animals are suffering from habitat loss due to our modern society. Now we here at Disney are working tirelessly to preserve and protect all animals and their habitats for future generations. And we do that with programs like the Disney Conservation Fund, although we just don't need as much help as we can get. Now it is my hope that seeing these amazing animals on your safari inspires you to evolve in any way you can, because honestly, you don't do the world. And if you decide to upload Disney's Animal Kingdom, it makes it very easy to do so. Simply approach any merchandise location in the Harambe Village and Disney will match any donation given, dollar for dollar and cent for cent, effectively doubling your donation, which is certainly something I, for one, feel is so very cool, if I say so myself. Now I do recognize that familiar music coming from the Harambe Village, indicating that we are now getting just a little bit closer to the edge of the Harambe. And that does, of course, mean that we are, our time together has been cut just a little bit too short, unfortunately. Now, if I do happen to have any wilderness explorers on board, you are going to want to go ahead and know the name of your safari vehicle. It's actually called the Simba 1. That is correct. It is the S-I-M-B-A, Simba, like the lion, and followed by the number 1. Just like those goats we saw not too long ago. Instead, you're going to go ahead and earn that safari badge a little ways up the trail on either page 14 or 15 of your Wilderness Explorers Handbook once we get back to our dock.